In this lesson, we'll continue to add detail to our character's epidermis with some stubble and eyebrows. All right, fantastic. So this is kind of where we've ended up at this point. We've added some wrinkles towards the end of the last lesson around the eyes. And, our camera may not be that close to be able to pick up on each individual wrinkle, but even at this zoomed out at this level, it still adds a lot of character around the eyes, really kind of bringing your focus to those. As you look at a person's face, whether it be a CG model or whether it be a person you're standing in front of, your eyes are naturally drawn to their eyes, and that's one of the most important features. So we've really framed those well, I think. So at this point, we're going to come in and add a new paint layer here. Let me just tap that button, and let's go ahead and just call this one Stubble. And I tell you what, let's just kind of zoom in here. Now, when it comes to stubble, it's a real common occurrence, and even if a man has shaved within a couple of hours after you're looking at him, oftentimes you can see where that hair growth is because there's some blue hues, some darker desaturated blues around in this area where his beard grows. So I'd like to go ahead and add in some of those areas. Let's just go ahead and hit the K key to bring up our shelf pop-up. We'll just grab our trusty super soft brush here, turn on the flow and the alpha control like we have before, and let's go ahead and hit the home key just to go ahead and give us a little bit more painting room. There we go. So for this area right here, this is where we want to put that, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the J key, and let's go ahead and just choose a color here. I'm going to choose kind of a bluish color. I definitely don't want anything that saturated, but we're going to go relatively dark with this. So we're going to come in and paint a little bit with the lights turned on. Then we're going to come in and turn those off. Now you can see there's a little bit of a discrepancy up near his ear where the normal map ends, and naturally it would pick up on his hair. But in adding kind of this 5 o'clock shadow, if you will, to his face, you can see how it's darkening that area right there. So if I come and look at that, even with the lighting on, it feels a little bit more like it might be some subtle hair growth there. So, the more we paint that in, the more it's going to appear that he's got a heavier shadow or more stubble from basically hair growth. So we're going to come in and paint that in, and at this point let's go ahead and turn off our lights, and you can kind of see the evenness of the color. That's something we probably want to keep in mind here. So you can see kind of in this area right here, it's getting a little bit dark. We want to probably avoid that. I may need to come in and hit that with a clear blend mode or a clear painting mode here in just a little bit. So but using this this soft round brush, we're going to come in and just kind of paint some of these areas where the hair would grow. So obviously it's going to grow up here onto his upper lip, sort of like that. And we'll come down here and hit his chin a little bit. Now typically on a male, the area on the chin that receives this growth, there's usually a little spot here and a little spot here that the hair just doesn't grow. So I might avoid those two areas. We'll just kind of wrap around and just kind of fill in the other side over here. Now I haven't reduced the opacity on my brush at all in doing this, so if you find that you're painting a little too heavy and you feel like you're getting really dark in certain areas, you might think about reducing the opacity on your brush. And again, you can do that right up here or in your brush editor's properties tab. So I think that I'm able to kind of control the pressure of my stylus though to an extent where I'm getting a satisfactory result here for the most part. There's a couple little areas where I might come back in and just feather at it with a clear painting mode. Okay, let's go ahead and turn the lights back on and see how that looks. Now, if that's a little too intense, like all over, everywhere you've painted, you feel like it's just a little bit too intense, you can always come over here and adjust the opacity of this stubble layer right over here. So just grab this little slider and slide it to the left just a little bit, and maybe reduce the overall darkness of it that way. And then if you need to, you can come in and use the clear painting mode with the same brush, and maybe just clear off a couple little spots that might be bothering you. So maybe went a little high right there, maybe a little dark in that spot that we pointed out earlier. Maybe a little dark in this spot right here. So that's how we can add some stubble to our character here. Now obviously there's a couple little spots I want to touch up on this area in between lessons. So I'll go ahead and shift our attention now at this point to the eyebrows. Let's go ahead and just turn our lights back on for right now. There we go. And we've got some sculpted detail that's conveyed through the normal map there for the eyebrows. So we've got a little bit of a kind of a guide to follow. But let's go ahead and create a new paint layer again. And we'll just title this Eyebrows. Just like so. And if we come over and hit the K key again, we can come over, and this time I want you to look over in the hard surface brushes. And there's this metal scratches brush right here. If I hit the home key and bring my brush editor back, you can see what this brush looks like. It's kind of a really nice brush for scratches, but it's also not a bad brush for hair either. You've got basically 3 dots that we're dragging along here. So now for the eyebrows, we're going to just simply kind of zoom in on that area. Let's choose a color. Now, obviously at this point we're starting to pick colors for his hair, and I have had it in my mind that I'm going to give him kind of dark brown hair. So let's go ahead and choose a kind of a color here. I'm going to go ahead and choose a saturation first. I don't want to oversaturate them, and then we'll come in and darken that up, just like so. And we'll want to go ahead and switch back to the normal painting mode. There we go. Now when you're painting with this brush on this small area of a 2K map, you're going to start to see some weird anomalies start to happen. So you can come in here and you can already start to see a little bit of weirdness right there as we paint with this brush. So we might start to see a little bit of weirdness over here. So if you have a little bit of a problem controlling exactly where these go, don't feel just terrible about it. Maybe just shrink the brush down just a little bit more and try and kind of manage those. They are hair after all, so we don't necessarily need them to be perfect. Eyebrows tend to grow a certain direction. If you need to, again, look in the mirror or find some photo reference for that, feel free. We're going to come in here and just start painting though. And I'm going to come over here. Now there will be a little bit of cleanup. You can see some of these little lines that are being produced are really being kind of going astray here, but I'm trying to essentially cover up that sculpted detail. Now you may find that this brush isn't quite producing a dense enough eyebrow here. So it feels like it's still a little sparse. So if you really want to give him a little bit more of a bushy eyebrow, you could always come in and let's go ahead and hit the N key. In this case, it's switching me back to my soft round brush that I had just used. The N key swaps between the last 2 brushes. So that's what that does. I'll just come in and use this brush right here. Just kind of darken up the core of that eyebrow a little bit. If we need to come in here and turn off the pressure sensitive settings there, we can do that, but we need to be really careful in doing that because as you can see here, it gets pretty dark pretty quick. So I'm going to come in here and just paint a little bit of that, kind of that core area of the eyebrow. Sort of like that. We'll go ahead and bake that down. And we'll come back over here. Alright, fantastic. So at this point I'm going to hit the N key to go back to my metal scratches brush, and then I'm going to choose just the normal brush under basic brushes, actually the default brush, so that I can swap between those 2 brushes here. So at this point I'm going to come in and really kind of shrink that down and darken up this area here. Might even shrink this brush down so I can kind of come in and start to make wispy hair-like strokes. Now these are bigger strokes, but what that's going to do is it's going to make it appear that some of the hair is starting to clump up. And we can always come in with our clear painting mode if we need to. And I shrink my brush down just a little bit more. And we'll start to kind of pull some of that away. We mentioned that some of that got a little bit wild when we were using that metal scratches brush, so we can come in and kind of paint those areas back. we just basically, for lack of a better term, we're grooming his eyebrows here. So, not that I've ever groomed eyebrows before, but it feels like that's kind of what we're doing here. But let's go ahead and just maybe erase a little bit more under here. And all right, fantastic. So we've got an eyebrow painted here for our character. And really, as far as the facial details, we could spend as much time as we really wanted to painting this face map. But the reality is, if this is a non-player character, then it's likely that we may not ever see any of that detail that we're spending a lot of time painting. So you can spend more time painting facial detail if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and finish out the other eyebrow in between lessons. But in the next lesson, we're going to go ahead and pick up and we're going to paint some diffuse color textures for the character's eyes.